Hello and welcome. I thought I'd take the chance while I had this machine. This is a customer's machine that's come in for service. It's an industrial overlocker or serger. You'll probably hear me refer to it mostly as an overlocker. That's just what I'm used to referring to these as, but I know they're called sergers in the northern hemisphere and possibly in other countries as well, but we call them overlockers here. I thought while I had it I'd show you it's a little bit unusual as far as an industrial overlocker goes, and I'll show you why in a second. But if you're not familiar with an industrial overlocker, they sit in a table. They sit down flush about this level here. So this the sump area here, and that sits down under the table there, and you've got your work surface raised up here. And on the older type machines like this one, they don't have a built-in servo motor like a lot of the modern machines have a servo motor built in right here, and you know it's a direct drive system. But these have a motor mounted underneath the table. Could also be a servo motor, but quite often it'll be a standard single phase clutch motor with an M section V-belt driving this main pulley here. But what I wanted to do is show you the feeding mechanism of this overlocker. In ways it's quite different to a standard machine, but in other ways it's very similar. So I'll get you in for a closer look there. Oh yeah, by the way, Juki MOR-814, as you can see there, class BD4, made in Japan, can't go wrong, very good quality machines. So this setup here is slightly different to standard. I'll show you this working in a second. But you know, if you're not that familiar with overlockers, I'll show you the standard setup. This is a standard foot for a standard sort of overlocker here. You can see that the toes are raised up there, so your material comes in this direction here, and your feed dogs are underneath pulling the material through. This is normally orientated in that direction there. So your material comes in under here, and the feed dogs do all the work, the lower feed dogs underneath. So the material gets clamped between the feed dogs, the throat plate here, and the presser foot. And you can see there that the presser foot is just basically a plate with a turned up front there. But if you have a look at this one here, you'll see, if we get a little bit closer there, you'll see that there's an independent feed dog here. You can see it with its two toes, this feed dog here. And you can see the lower feed dogs just under here, doing their job here. And then you've got the upper feed dogs here, doing their job here. I'll get you a side-on look to that. If we have a look. Let's have a little look from a different angle there. And you can see the motion there of the top feed dog here. It's a very clever design actually. The reason you'd want to use a top feed machine is if you've got unstable fabrics, or you've got fabrics that tend to ply shift when you sew them. But it's basically when the two plies slip against each other, and the bottom ply will tend to get fed more than the top ply. Yeah, that's helpful in that situation. And you'll swing this out. I'll show you that swung out there. We can swing this out of the way, and you can see the lower feed dogs here. Got your needles, upper looper, and your blade, top blade there. This bottom blade here is not set very well. I'll sort that out. I won't go through too much detail in this video. I just wanted to give you a quick look at what I'm up to here, and at this top feed mechanism here. And so you've got your feed dogs doing their thing there. So they come up, they come above the plate here. They do the feeding because the presser foot is pushing down on here with the material sandwiched in between. And they do their feeding, coming back towards the back of the machine. Then they dip down under the plate, come forward without feeding because they're lower than the throat plate here. And then they come up and start feeding the material again. And these are differential feed machines. So this front feed dog here is independent of the rear feed dog. And the front feed dog consists of these two rows of feeds here, those two. and the rear feed dog consists, on this model anyway, of these 3 rows here. They can be set independently of each other, and that's what we call a differential feed. And I'll demonstrate that just quickly. There is an adjustment down the side of the machine here. If I move the lever right to the top, now you'll see that the front feed dog, if you watch the difference between the front feed dog and the rear feed dog, you'll notice that the front will catch up with the back when I do the feeding. Okay, see it catching up there? Come around, have another go at that. See it? Catching up. I'm turning it back and forward there so you can see the motion. But the front feed dog's moving a lot more than the rear, so that will give you a gather. Naturally will gather the material. And if we go down to the other extreme, you'll see that the rear feed dog tends to pull away from the front feed dog there. See it? And that stretch, so that's a stretch motion, turning the machine back and forward again. So that's if you want to stretch the material. And then you can set it to neutral, and we're back to standard feeding there. So I thought I'd just quickly show you that in action, that differential feed. And just here you can see the little driver for the top feed mechanism here. Just goes around in like an ellipse there. You may also notice that the needle bar doesn't move on this machine. This is quite a common setup for an overlocker. A normal sewing machine, you'd have your needle clamp attached to the bottom of the needle bar here, and the needle bar itself would move up and down. But this is set up so that the needle bar is stationary. So this, you'll see that this part here with the needle clamps attached to it moves up and down the needle bar, the stationary needle bar. So yeah, it's just a different way of handling things really. It's quite a good idea. And you can see when it's disconnected, you can see that you can just move it around. You can move it back and forward and up and down. And if we have a look just here, you can see the little driver where this driver here, this little post here, locates into a hole just in here. That's what gives the top feed its motion there, it's that little driver. Push that in, clamp that down, and there we go. You can see that doing its thing there. And if I swing this out again, you'll see, you may have noticed this here. This is the end of an oil wick that comes through the body of the machine, and that kind of relates to what I'm actually doing with this machine. I'll show you in a second. And that mates up with this little pad here, and oil soaks through to this here, and then in turn when that's pressed against it there, oil soaks through here and down the little tube here and keeps all this lubricated, this area here. So that's just another way of doing lubrication. Here is another wick. This is an oil wick here. This might be the one that leads through to here actually, and you'll see in a second, but all this plastic tubing here is quite brittle and it's sort of breaking away. That's probably okay. That's really just guiding the wick or keeping the wick out of the working motions. I might just have to get that up out of the way. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do anything about that, because I can't easily replace the wick or get one end of the wick out, if you know what I mean, to replace the tube here. So I'll probably work out some way of keeping that out of the way. It doesn't really matter that it's cracked there, as long as the oil wicks right through, which it will. That's doing its job there. But once we get the sump off, you'll see what the problem is with broken tubes like this. I'll show you that in a second. Yeah, so that's one way of doing a lubrication there. And if we just pop this back together here, it's a couple of adjustments here. One is the foot pressure. Now that's the foot pressure for the main pressure, this main foot, not the upper feed foot, just the main foot there. That's this pressure here. And you know, on a standard machine it would be the foot pressure, the main foot pressure for this foot here on a standard non-top feed machine. So the more you wind that down, the more pressure there is on the outer foot, the stationary foot, and if you wind it back out again, you get less pressure there. Now there's also another adjuster here, there's a lock nut here, same sort of thing. Wind it down, you get more pressure, wind it back up, you get less, and that's for the top feed. So if you want to put more pressure on the top feed, you can just by winding this down. The other handy thing is on the back here, you may have noticed this, if you're used to standard industrial overlockers, this is not normally on the back of the machine, this little post here. What this does is it allows you to give the top feed more or less feed. So you can see there that the little indicator's right at the bottom of its travel there, and that is indicating that the top feed is in unison with the lower feed. And if I screw this up, let's go right to the top of its travel so that I can show you what that does. It's another form of differential feed as well. So you might be able to see now that the top feed is actually travelling more than the bottom feed. See that there? So it's actually kind of clawing more material in. So that will tend to, you know, feed more of the top layer of material into the seam. So yeah, you've got quite a bit of adjustment there. I'll show you what I've got the machine in mainly for, apart from just a general service, is I noticed that the machine wasn't pumping oil when I was testing it. There was absolutely nothing coming up through here. There was oil in the sump. There's a little sight glass down here. You can see a little, this is the sight glass here. There's no oil in it at the moment, I've drained it. And you'll see two lines, two red lines, the lower and the upper there. When you've got oil in here, this fills with oil. So where the oil is, it goes dark and you can easily see the oil level. So as you put more oil in it, the dark area just climbs up. And the idea is to get your oil level to the top mark there and keep it in between the top and the lower mark there. So you can see there that I've drained the oil there, but there was oil in there, it was full to the top mark there, but it still wasn't pumping oil here. So I thought I'd investigate that, and that's why I've got it here with me. We tip it over. I've already had the sump off, so everything's loose here, but I'll just show you that. There's these 4 nuts and a spring washer and a washer to come off here. Those ones there. This is the drain plug for the oil. So they're kind of a self-contained oil system with a little oil pump. A little bit like a car engine in a way, with the oil system. And that sump will just lift off here. And here we go. So, first thing I noticed was these tubes here. See these tubes here? They are just falling to pieces. Now, there should be a tube that comes across up into here. There's another one that runs up the back there, which has just come off there. And there's another one there that's disconnected as well. The plan is to replace the tubing. I've got some replacement tubing here. And the plan is to join everything back up so that all the pump and everything is working as it should. Just get you a close look here. Have a look at the internals here. So you've got the oil filter, little gauze filter here, and this is the oil pump, and then you've got the working mechanisms here. You can see some of these are the looper driving mechanisms here, these two. Yeah, very well made machines. And you've got an oil return path here. This is this gauze here. I've got these two here connected up. That one there goes to a main bearing. I'll show you that in a second, this lower one. And that one there goes to the oil sight glass, which I'll also show you in a second. I've got that one connected. There's a bearing down in here that's supplying, and that comes out through here. This is a little this is a return gauze here, so oil that's been pumped through will just fall down onto this little gauze here and then make its way back into the machine sump there through that, and then that will come around here like that. I'll just get those two screws in there. Let's get those two started, and then I can put this. This is a little. I think that went around like so. This is a little keeper. Let's clamp that down there, and then cut this to length here. Just about there, and then I can just push that on there like that there. Make sure that goes right on there, and there we go. We have the three main pipes replaced there. Just in case you're wondering exactly what these were for, I didn't really explain it before. Hello, Molly. These here, they provide oil. So oil gets pumped from the pump here up these three tubes here. You can also see another one here. That's got a wick running through it. I'll just leave that. There's no real easy way to remove the wick and feed the wick through the piping here. So I'll leave that. I mean, it's okay. It's in position. The wick will still do its job. So just get these two here done up. Sorry about the racket the cat's making. She probably wants to get up on the desk, but I don't want to get cat fur through this machine. Here's something that happens quite often too on these machines. It can happen on any industrial machine that's running a belt. You know, thread can get caught around here. There's quite a bit of thread on there. So I'll cut through that and remove that thread there. I'll just quickly turn the machine back onto its base there. They're pretty grunty little machines, nuggety little things. Right, okay, she's made her way up. Incoming, no. So that's the top of one of the tubes there, and that's the telltale, oil telltale there. So that's what goes under the sight glass there. So the sight glass will be sitting up here, and that will pump oil out this little hole here, just so that you can tell if the oil system's working correctly. And that's actually what prompted me to take a look in here, was that wasn't pumping oil, and that's when I found the piping was all brittle. And you can see the other one down there to a main bearing down in there. You're lying on top of all the tools for? Not very comfortable, is it? That can't be very comfortable, Molly. It can't be very comfortable. Yeah. She's taken to going to sleep on my workbench. She's given me the look. She wants a bit of room. Sometimes put a nice little towel down like this for her. Hello. Here's, you know, this Molly. So this here is the original tubing. You know, it's just like, it reminds me of pasta actually. It's got that sort of brittleness to it. Uncooked pasta. There you go. Do you want lunch? Anyone want lunch? There you go. Look. There we go, little pasta tubes. What do you think, Molly? Look yummy? No, of course not. So that's about it for this one. I'll go ahead and put the machine back together and put the sump back on, fill the oil and get it back to the customer. I'll do a test run on the machine once it's in the mounted back into the table and the belts hooked up and whatnot. I'll also go and clear that thread off there as well. So yeah, I hope you found that interesting, and I'd just like to say thank you to my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help support the channel, please take a look at patreon.com/sewing machines. And as always, thank you very much for watching.